I just couldn't help but video outside today. It was a slow day, no inspections, and I wanted to do this for a long time, so I thought, well, today's a good day. It's a little warmer. I hate winter, but when you have this much beauty of the hoarfrost on the trees, it's just, you have to appreciate it. Welcome back to another home hint from Border Home Inspection. Today I want to talk about sewer scopes. Now this video is going to be fairly long because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to sewer scopes. If you recall some of my other videos, they're more or less an information thing. Some of them are quite short, some are longer. Most of them are not even promotional for my business. They're just information so that you understand the topic a little bit better. And I don't profess to be an absolute expert in anything, but I have some knowledge and I like to share that with you. So in today's video, I'm going to attempt to do that when it comes to sewer scoping. It's a bit of a promotional video, I guess, in the sense that I want to promote sewer scoping with your home inspection because it's quite important, and I want to show you the reasons why it's important. Oftentimes in my past, over 10 years ago, before I had a sewer camera, it was one of the areas where homeowners would let me know that they had issues with the sewer line after the inspection. And oftentimes I would tell them you should get a sewer scope done, but they couldn't for one reason or another. The town or the city was too busy, or they just didn't bother, and then they pay the price later on. So in today's video, I want to show you some of the defects that I find in the lines and give you some advice on how to approach fixing those problems. So if your home was built pre-1970s, then there's a good possibility that the line under your concrete floor will be cast iron. Or it could be a combination where someone has already dug it up. As you can see in this photo, they've changed part of the line that was cast iron to plastic pipe, and there's more failures. So it's very common to have cast iron or steel type pipe under your floor inside the house, but pretty rare to have that outside the house. So here we're looking at clay pipe. Clay pipe is the older style pipe, up to 100 years old. There's cast iron inside the house, but clay outside the house. You can see with clay pipe, it has loose joints, generally speaking, and one of the problems with clay pipe, not the only one, but one of the problems was the fact that roots could sense the water inside the pipe, and they would grow for very long distances and then grow into the pipe. One other problem that you might see on this type of pipe is it might be cracked. Generally, it's thick enough that it wasn't cracked very much. Oftentimes it got cracked from mechanical things like augers and so on, trying to get rid of these roots. So that's the first type of pipe. The next type of pipe that became popular in the 1960s was no corrode, or we call Orangeburg pipe. You can see it's kind of a fiber pipe. It's basically impregnated with tar, and that type of pipe had tendencies to delaminate. It push up from the bottom, like you can see in this photo. I don't have any actual photos of my own right now, but I've seen this particular type of thing happen lots. So it's failing after about 50 years. And if your pipe is doing what this pipe is doing, then it's just a matter of time. And most municipalities are replacing it. Then in the late 80s in my area, they started changing pipe to what we call SDR 35. And you can see here how this pipe fits together. It kind of overlaps. In this case, it's separated. And you can see in another video I've done where I've figured out why it keeps backing up, because the gasket that holds the pipe together is pushed into the middle of the pipe. And here's another picture of a transition where the clay pipe and the SDR 35 were not made in a good contact. So let's talk about the oldest pipe first. With the old clay pipe, there was a couple of problem areas that I experienced quite a bit. The biggest one is the tree roots. So the roots are growing in through those loose joints and getting into the pipe. They grow enough that they block the pipe off, and the toilet paper and the solids get backed up. So the other thing you have to think about is, how is the water getting in your basement? So there's only two sources of water. So there's the internal source of water. So when you let your tub go or you flush your toilet, water runs down the pipe. If the pipe is blocked, then we refer to that as a blockage, and then the water backs up until it comes out your floor drain or your toilet or your shower in the basement. We can talk a little bit later about backwater valves and so on, and I have my opinions about those as well. But that's the one source of water. The other source of water would be if the water is coming from the town or from the street. So in our area, some neighborhoods have smaller pipe, lower capacity, and sometimes the water, after a heavy rainstorm, for instance, will come down that pipe and push its way back up into your house. So that's what we refer to as a backup. They're both backups, but one's caused by a blockage in the pipe, the other is caused by water infiltrating into the house from the city or the town sewer, or your septic tank for that matter. So with the clay pipe, the main problem would be the roots. So if you have an older home, say older than 1985, you probably have clay pipe, and that is potentially causing roots to grow in the line, whether you have trees or not. So let's get that clear. The other thing that could be happening is the pipe could physically have a sag in it, so the ground is settled for whatever reason. In my area, that's not usually a big problem with the clay pipe. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is when the two pipes come together, for instance, if you had someone dig up the line and replace part of the line with plastic, well, what can happen is the two pipes will move. So if this is your downstream pipe coming this way to the street, then what can happen is the pipe here can fall down and water has to kind of cascade and go through. That's the better of the two scenarios, as opposed to it being this way, where water has to come in, hit a joint, and then go up over the joint and get past it. And in fact, when I'm cameraing a line, if there's a joint, sometimes my camera hits the joint and I can't go beyond that point. Same thing with an auger. Sometimes the auger can't go beyond that point. So no matter how much money you throw at a problem, sometimes you still don't know what the problem is and you have to dig up the line. So let's hope that doesn't come to that for you. So those are really the two biggest problem areas, would be roots in the line and joint displacement. Sometimes broken pipe. Again, in my area, the ground is pretty stable. Broken pipe happens, but usually doesn't cause serious problems. So moving on to Orangeburg pipe, which would be 1960s pipe. It's about 50 years old, 60 years old now. In our area, the Orangeburg pipe is starting to ovalize, and oftentimes when it ovalizes, two things happen. The top kind of kinks downward and the bottom pushes upward. So depending on how severe that is, that will determine whether you're going to have to dig that up or not. I know there's communities, there's cities in the United States, for instance, that are mandating if it's in the ground, it has to be dug up. I'm of the opinion of if it isn't broke, you don't fix it. So if I camera a line that's Orangeburg and it's in good shape, I say good for you, keep it. You know, pretty much that it's a good pipe. It's been a good pipe. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but in our area, it's held up quite well. And if it's still good, it's still good. But if it's collapsing, it's time to change it. Dig it up. Dig it up all the way from the street, all the way back to the house. So after Orangeburg pipe and clay pipe, we changed to plastic pipe, either like a white PVC pipe or the greener pipe that we use for city infrastructure nowadays, which is usually STR35 is the brand name on that pipe. And it's a pretty good pipe. The problems with plastic pipe of any sort is the fact that if you dig the trench too deep and then you just fill it in with loose soil, you put the pipe on that loose soil, it looks good, but after a while the pipe settles. If the pipe settles, you get a low spot in the pipe, and that is by far the biggest problem area I find with plastic pipe. I have seen situations where the pipe has pulled apart, as you see in one of my videos. I've seen places where the gasket gets pushed into the pipe. Again, you know, that's installer error and probably not a common thing. So that's the biggest problems I find with plastic pipe, is a sag in the line. Beyond that, that's pretty much the problems I find in pipes. Always be careful what you flush down the sewer line. If you are not careful with that, who knows, right? A sewer line is only designed to take toilet paper and some a little bit of solids. Generally, you want to have a good slope. In some of my pictures, you see that the toilet paper is still sitting in the bottom of the pipe. That's because it doesn't have enough slope. I would prefer myself that you have too much slope. 1/4 inch per foot is your ideal, I believe. Again, I'm not an expert, but from my experience, more slope is better than not enough slope. A lot of the errors that we find in the pipe are installation errors. Here's some examples of that. In one case, water is rushing into the pipe through a clay pipe, and in another situation, someone has buried a shovel into the line, and in another situation, the pipes come apart, or the gasket has been pushed inside the pipe. And in other cases, people trying to clear the line put too much heat on the line and cause it to melt, as you see here. Or perhaps the tank, in the case of a septic tank, has moved, and you can see the rubber piece on the tank can flex a bit.